An ellipse is the omission of a word in quotes or writing in a way that makes things more concise or adds suspense. For example, if a student were to be quoting Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, instead of writing out the entire speech, they could simply write the first few words, 7 years ago, and then put in an ellipse, which is just the 3 dots in this case, and then close the quotation. So everyone knows what they're talking about, but they don't have to say the entire quote. Another way this can be used, and what is mostly called an ellipse in literary writing, is when one would use it to create suspense or slow things down in writing. For example, in a story or a novel, you could use it in dialogue or to create suspense. And a visual for this would be when an angsty junior hire is texting his crush and he gets a little over-emotional and texts, "I love you," but the crush doesn't know how to respond and you just see those 3 dots that seem to go on forever. Most people with a Apple device have had that sensation. That would be kind of the feeling or the visual of an ellipse, whereas in actual literary writing, you could use it to demonstrate a pause in dialogue or add suspense in the actual writing.
Yeah. An asyndeton is a list without conjunctions. For example, if I was to say, I grew the strawberries and loved the strawberries and ate the strawberries, but they still gave me an allergic reaction, I would use an asyndeton if I would cross out the and just say, I grew the strawberries, loved the strawberries, ate the strawberries, but they still gave me an allergic reaction. Many important writers use this as well, such as Shakespeare in his Winter's Tale, which he says, is whispering nothing, is leaning cheek to cheek, is meeting noses, kissing with inside lip, stopping the career of laughter with a sigh. Shakespeare does not use the word and between his list in order to create a rhythm and flow in his writing.
So a polysyndeton is a list with a law of conjunctions. And basically, I'm thinking, isn't that the opposite of an asyndeton? And yes, basically it is. A polysyndeton can be used in the exact opposite effect of an asyndeton, where it slows things down and places emphasis on the different words in the list. This can be used very effectively in speeches. For example, Steve Jobs, in his keynote address at Macworld in 2007, said, "It's got awesome security and the right apps. It's got everything from Coco and the graphics, and it's got core animation built in, and it's got the audio and video that OS X is famous for. It's got all the stuff we want." Basically, he emphasizes all of these great features by setting them alone with a conjunction on either side so that everyone really stops and listens to what he has to say. So the main effect of a polysyndeton mostly has to do with emphasis and slowing down and having the reader or listener really focus on what those conjunctions are trying to highlight. For example, if someone was to say, he ran and jumped and laughed with joy, that would emphasize each of the actions, jumped and laughed and ran. It's emphasizing all of them as opposed to someone who just said, he ran, jumped, and laughed with joy, which is just kind of, it just is much flatter.